Have you ever felt a pair of eyes watching you only to turn and find nothing? That unnerving sensation is what we're diving into tonight. We're exploring the unsettling world of mannequins that seem to have a life of their own. Our first story takes us to a dusty antique shop on the edge of town, a place where time seemed to stand still, where the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten stories. Its shelves were crammed with relics of bygone eras, tarnished silver, faded photographs, and furniture that creaked with forgotten memories, each piece whispering tales of the past. But it was a single mannequin tucked away in a shadowy corner that held a chilling secret. Her name was Eleanor, and the owner of the shop claimed she was a relic from the Victorian era, a time when elegance masked the mysteries of the human soul. Dressed in a faded silk gown, her porcelain face frozen in a melancholic smile, Eleanor was unnervingly lifelike, almost as if she could step out of her static pose at any moment. Her glass eyes, however, held a peculiar depth, a strange luminescence that seemed to follow customers as they moved through the shop, making them feel watched. At first, it was just whispers among the staff, hushed conversations about strange occurrences, small, unexplainable things. Objects near Eleanor moving slightly, her delicate porcelain hands shifting position as if adjusting her shawl, almost as if she were alive. They dismissed it as their imaginations playing tricks on them, a mere figment of their tired minds. But the incidents grew bolder, more frequent, and harder to ignore. One evening, as the owner locked up for the night, he could have sworn he saw Eleanor's head turn, her eyes following him as he secured the door, a silent observer in the dark. He brushed it off as fatigue, convincing himself it was just his mind playing tricks. Then the security footage surfaced, revealing the truth. The grainy black and white images showed the antique shop after hours, cloaked in an unsettling silence. And then it happened. Eleanor, the once stationary mannequin, slowly turned her head, her gaze sweeping across the room as if searching for something in the darkness, a silent sentinel in the night. The footage was too clear to be a trick of the light, too real to be dismissed. The owner, his face pale, shared the footage with his staff, their reactions a mix of fear and disbelief. Word of the moving mannequin spread like wildfire, drawing curious onlookers and paranormal investigators to the antique shop, each eager to witness the phenomenon for themselves. Some scoffed at the story, dismissing it as a hoax, a clever trick to draw in customers. Others felt a shiver run down their spines as they met Eleanor's eyes, a sense of unease settling upon them, as if the mannequin's gaze could pierce their very souls. Our next story plunges us into the heart of a bustling department store, a place where commerce and consumerism reigned supreme, drawing in crowds from all walks of life. The air buzzed with the chatter of shoppers, each aisle filled with conversations and laughter, the clatter of hangers on racks as customers sifted through the latest fashions, and the rhythmic pulse of pop music that set a lively backdrop to the scene. It was a place designed to entice and distract, a sensory overload of sights and sounds, a haven of brightly lit aisles and carefully curated displays that beckoned shoppers to explore. But even amidst the manufactured cheer, a darkness lurked in the shadows, unnoticed by the day's patrons. It began with a series of unsettling observations by the night crew, the unsung heroes who kept the store running smoothly. They were responsible for restocking shelves, cleaning floors, and maintaining the store's pristine appearance, ensuring everything was in its proper place before the morning rush of eager shoppers. Their routine was as predictable as clockwork. But something was amiss, a subtle shift in the familiar landscape, that sent shivers down their spines, making them question their own senses. The mannequins, those blank-faced sentinels of style, seemed to be moving almost imperceptibly at first. At first, they dismissed it as their imaginations running wild, a trick of the dim lighting and long hours. But the incidents persisted, becoming more frequent, more brazen, as if the mannequins were testing the boundaries of their world. Mannequins, once posed in static groups, were now facing different directions, their positions changing overnight, their lifeless gazes fixed on different points in the store, as if they were silently communicating with each other. Some were found in entirely different locations, far from where they had been left. Their plastic limbs arranged in new, unsettling poses that defied explanation. It was as if they were coming to life after the store closed its doors, moving under the cover of darkness. The rumors spread through the ranks of the night crew, whispered in hushed tones during cigarette breaks, each worker adding their own eerie encounter to the growing legend. Some refused to believe it, clinging to logic and reason, dismissing the stories as mere superstition. Convinced that there had to be a rational explanation for the strange occurrences. Others couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, a sense of unease that gnawed at them. One night, a security guard named Frank decided to investigate, determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. Armed with a flashlight, he stationed himself in the security office, his eyes scanning the bank of monitors for any sign of movement. His eyes glued to the bank of monitors. Hours crawled by, the monotony broken only by the occasional rustle of packaging, or the distant hum of the store's air conditioning. Just as Frank was about to write it off as an overactive imagination, he saw it, a movement that defied explanation. On one of the monitors, a mannequin, dressed in a flowing white gown, slowly turned its head, its vacant eyes seeming to lock with his own, as if it were aware of his presence. A chill shot down Frank's spine, a cold realization that the stories were true and that something unnatural was at play. Chapter 3. The Haunted Reflection. Our final tale leads us to a chic boutique nestled on a quiet side street, a haven of designer clothing and curated accessories. This boutique was known for its exclusivity and the unique pieces it offered to its discerning clientele. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, the walls adorned with photographs of impossibly glamorous models. Each corner of the store exuded an aura of opulence and high fashion. It was a place where image was everything, a sanctuary of style and sophistication. Customers came not just to shop, but to immerse themselves in a world of elegance and allure. But behind the facade of elegance, a darkness festered, a malevolent energy that clung to a single haunting object. This object was the source of an eerie presence that seemed to permeate the very air of the boutique. At the center of the boutique, displayed prominently on a velvet-draped pedestal, stood a vintage mannequin. This mannequin was unlike any other, with an aura that drew the eye and held it captive. Her name was Esme, and she was a stunning example of early 20th century craftsmanship. The detail in her creation was extraordinary, a testament to the artistry of a bygone era. Her plaster body was perfectly sculpted, her porcelain face painted with delicate features and haunting almond-shaped eyes. These eyes seemed to follow you, no matter where you stood in the room. She was dressed in a vintage flapper dress, her delicate hands eternally poised as if holding a cigarette holder. The dress, a relic of the roaring 20s, added to her mystique. The boutique owner, a stylish woman named Camille, had purchased Esme from an estate sale, drawn to her ethereal beauty and old-world glamour. Camille believed that Esme would be the perfect addition to her carefully curated collection. She believed Esme would be the perfect centerpiece for her boutique. Little did she know, this decision would change everything. But from the moment Esme arrived, the boutique was plagued by a series of unsettling occurrences. It started with small things like misplaced items and strange drafts. Lights flickered erratically, strange noises echoed through the empty shop at night, and a pervasive feeling of unease settled over anyone who dared to enter. The once inviting boutique now felt like a place of dread. Camille, initially dismissive, found herself growing increasingly unnerved. She tried to rationalize the events, but the sense of foreboding was impossible to ignore. One evening, as Camille was closing up shop, she noticed something peculiar about Esme. The mannequin seemed to have shifted slightly, though Camille was certain she hadn't moved her. The mannequin's head was tilted at an unnatural angle, her porcelain gaze seemingly fixated on a dark corner of the boutique. It was as if Esme was aware of something that Camille could not see. Camille, her heart pounding, cautiously approached the mannequin, her hand trembling as she reached out to adjust Esme's head. The air around her felt charged, almost electric. As her fingers brushed against the cold porcelain, a jolt of static electricity surged through her body. The shock was more than just physical. It felt as though something was trying to communicate with her. Camille gasped, yanking her hand back as if burned. The sensation left her shaken, her mind racing with questions and fears. The lights in the boutique flickered violently, plunging the shop into momentary darkness. In that brief blackout, Camille felt an overwhelming presence, as if she was not alone. When the lights flickered back on, Esme's head was once again tilted, her haunting gaze fixed on Camille. The mannequin's eyes seemed to bore into her soul, revealing a depth of malevolence. Panic surged through Camille, her breath catching in her throat. She felt an urgent need to escape, to get away from the oppressive atmosphere. She stumbled back from the mannequin, her eyes wide with terror. The boutique, once her pride and joy, had become a place of nightmares. It was then that she noticed something even more unsettling. Esme's reflection in the ornate mirror behind her no longer matched her movements. The reflection seemed to have a life of its own. As Camille watched in horror, the reflection in the mirror continued to stare at her, its porcelain face contorted into a grotesque mockery of Esme's once serene beauty. The transformation was both horrifying and mesmerizing. The reflection's lips curled into a sinister smile, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. It was a sight that defied explanation, a vision from the darkest corners of the imagination. Camille, her mind reeling, fled the boutique, the image of the demonic reflection seared into her memory. She ran through the empty streets, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't return until the next morning, her fear replaced by a steely determination to rid herself of the cursed mannequin. The daylight brought a semblance of courage, but the memory of the previous night lingered. She hired a priest to bless the boutique, hoping to cleanse the space of whatever malevolent energy had taken root. The ritual was thorough, with prayers and holy water meant to banish the darkness. From antique stores to bustling department stores, these stories remind us that sometimes the most ordinary objects can hide the darkest secrets. The next time you find yourself passing a storefront window, take a moment to look at the mannequins. Their blank stares, once ignored, might just send a shiver down your spine.